Hey YouTube, welcome back to Monkey Business. Today we're going to work on putting some braided brake lines front and rear on the rat rod. That'll help the brake pedal be a little firmer, get rid of any expansion in the line, and make the brakes a little nicer yet. We've got a nice vacuum brake bleeding kit we just got. We're also going to put a proportioning valve in the rear because currently we're not running one. And A, there should be one there. B, the proportioning valve that we bought can go all the way to shut it all the way off. So for that burnout contest, that ought to come out real handy. So anyway, we're going to put the brake lines, bleed these brakes, and we got the transmission shift kit in that we ordered, so that ought to be the next project after this one. So follow along for that one to come. All right, so we're ready to mount the brake lines on here on the driver's or on the passenger side. We have some rusted up fittings. We've put some PB Blaster on them, hoping that that loosens things up. But the other thing we're going to do to cheat the system is, rather than try to spin the fittings on the steel brake line itself, we're going to cut the rubber brake lines loose and make sure that they spin first, and we'll unscrew them from the steel lines on the truck, and then screw our new lines back on there. The brake kit we've got's got nice clips and everything to remount them, so the few places we're going to make cuts won't matter. We took that banjo bolt out of the bottom of this brake caliper here. So we've got that line loose. That little sheet metal nut back here is not going to come loose, so we're going to get the cutting wheel and just chop it off there. Do as I say, not as I do. Wear your glasses. Make sure you got a brake line wrench. Gets better coverage on that brake line back there. We'll get a wrench on it and see if we can turn this rubber end rather than turn the brake line in. Now the fitting's loose. Let's get the brake line to come out of there. There we go. See, we gave her a little notch, but she's out of there. This new line, banjo bolt, you get a copper washer, the banjo fitting, another copper washer. Get that threaded back up inside the caliper and tighten it up. Kind of line it up under there the direction you want it aimed before you tighten it. And then this end of the brake line has a nice fitting that swivels, that way it doesn't tie the brake line in. Tighten that up nice and snug, and then I like to take a zip tie and go to the cotter pin that's in there and leave you a little slack, put you a zip tie around that, and that way it holds the brake line in the center of the pivot point, and the brake line can't happen to get tangled up on something in there. I take one zip tie, run it through the cotter pin and around the line, and then a second one and run around the line to hold that zip tie from sliding without pulling it real tight. And there we go. We'll clip the zip ties off. We'll go do the other two wheels, and we'll work on that brake proportioning valve, and then we'll show you how to bleed these brakes. So here we've got our brake proportioning valve. It's labeled master cylinder and brake, so that we know which direction flow is supposed to go. We've got our rear brake line and our front brake line here. Mine just happened to have a compression fitting there, and I'm using compression fittings to install this. These are going to go right in line like this, and so we'll get started. We got our braided brake lines on. Now we need to bleed these brakes. I've already broke the bleeders loose on all four all the way around. We got our vacuum bleeder. I've got some Teflon tape. I'm going to take this bleeder out, let this gravity bleed while I wrap some Teflon tape around the threads. You want to make sure you stay just on the threads. And that way when you tighten this back up, it can't suck air around the threads while you're vacuum bleeding. We stayed off of the fitting down here, so that should bleed just fine. We're going to watch for air bubbles right here. We're going to pump up the vacuum and watch this tank fill up at the same time. There's some pretty good bubbles right there. You have to have somebody up front watching your reservoir when you're doing this, making sure that you're not running out of fluid. We've got Taylor up there checking the fluid right now. When she gets done, we're going to drain this reservoir. Good. The fluid is a little bit dark that we're getting out of here. So while we're doing this, we're going to make a fluid change as much as we can. So let's see if we can get this camera to sit here. Okay, we're going to go around, do the other three, make sure that those are in good shape and don't have any air in them, and then we're going to put the wheels on, take her for a test drive.